The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Thank you. Petition Alicia Kearns.
Here we go. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This petition calls on the Government to protect the rural character of Rutland and the Stamford villages and thousands of acres of best and most versatile agricultural land by saying no to Canadian solar and its use of Uyghur blood labour and saying no to the Mallard Pass solar plant. I want to thank the 3,414 people who physically signed this petition. It is a colossal number for an extremely rural area. And a huge thanks to the Mallard Pass Solar Action Group for their leadership and dedication. In particular, Sue Holloway, Helen Woolley, Adele Stainsby, who are in the gallery today, as well as Tony Orvis, Philip Britton and Trevor Burfield. But this petition is also delivered in tribute to Keith Busfield. The 3,414 petitioners therefore request that the House of Commons urge the Government to take into account the concerns of the petitioners and reject the proposed development of the 2,175-acre Mallard Pass solar plant on the Rutland and Lincolnshire borders.
Well done.
Well.
Petition, proposed Mallard Pass solar plant.
Petition Jonathan Gullis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise to present a petition signed 5,825 times on behalf of 6-year-old Charlotte Skye Naglis, who tragically lost her life thanks to John Owen, who was driving over the speed limit whilst under the influence of both drugs and alcohol. Following this tragedy, Mr Owen fell into a temporary coma, and under the current law, his blood could not be tested without his consent, despite it being able to be taken without it. Therefore, this petition, thanks to Charlotte's inspiring mother Claire, seeks to see a change to the Road Traffic Act of 1998, and therefore the petitioners request that the House of Commons urge the Government to reform Section 7A, subsection 4 of the Road Traffic Act 1998 and remove the requirement for consent for the testing of a suspect's blood in the event of death by a collision with a motor vehicle.
Yeah.
Petition Charlotte's Law.
Petition Chris Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise with a petition from the sophisticated electorates of the Glasgow South West constituency, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to pay particular thanks to Cathy Young and Nicola Stewart from the Scottish Infected Blood Forum, particularly for the tie I'm wearing today, which is a birthday present for me, Madam Deputy Speaker, who are making the reasonable point, as many constituents are in Glasgow South West, about the recommendations for compensation of those affected by infected blood lodged by Sir Brian Langstaff in April 2023 have still not received action from the Government. And the petition declares that people who receive infected blood and who have suffered as a consequence have, along with their families, waited far too long for redress. And the petitioners therefore request that the House of Commons urges the Government to implement the recommendations in the second interim report of the Infected Blood Inquiry without delay.
Here.
Petition, recommendations of the Infected Blood Inquiry.
Petition Andrew Gwynn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday at Treasury Questions, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, in response to my right honourable friend, the member for Kingston upon Hull North, said this: "I gently say to the right honourable lady that I stand by every word I said when I gave evidence twice to the Infected Blood Inquiry. The Government have an absolute moral responsibility not just to pay the compensation owed, but to pay it as speedily as possible. My constituents have one clear response. If the Chancellor accepts the case, why hasn't it been done? This petition from the constituents of Denton and Reddish therefore calls on the House of Commons to urge the Government to implement the recommendations in the second interim report of the Infected Blood Inquiry without delay, and the petitioners remain, etc.
Petition, recommendations of the Infected Blood Inquiry.
Petition, Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Too many people have died without justice or compensation for being provided infected blood. Their families suffer today. Such injustices deepened without the interim report being implemented and interim compensation payments being paid when there is opportunity to do so. I thank Sir Brian Langstaff, due to publish his report this May, Sir Robert Francis and his work on the compensation payments, and my honourable friend, the member for Hull North, in the tenacious way that they have sought to secure compensation and learning from one of the greatest tragedies of the last 50 years. And yet nothing was in this year's budget to say that that compensation will be paid. People and their families have suffered enough. The petitioners therefore request that the House of Commons urges the Government to implement the recommendations of the second interim report of the Infected Blood Inquiry without delay, and the petitioners remain, etc.
Petition, recommendations of the Infected Blood Inquiry.
Petition, Dr Therese Coffey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise to present this petition on behalf of the residents of Suffolk Coastal and the wider Suffolk area. This is in recognising that Barclays Bank will be closing its Leiston branch in May, and further recognises that this means Barclays will have closed all its 8 branches in Suffolk Coastal, including Aldborough, Felixstowe, Halesworth, Martlesham Heath, Saxmundham, Southwold and Woodbridge. Furthermore, we believe that are concerned that rural areas like Suffolk are more likely to be risk of bank branch closures. Meanwhile, the Financial Conduct Authority has been given extra powers under the Financial Services and Markets Act 2023, and we are very concerned about the validity of the assessment of the justification of closure by Barclays, which the FCA is expected to validate. Therefore, the petitioners request that the House of Commons urges the Government to encourage Barclays to keep open their last remaining branch in Leiston and Suffolk Coastal, and require the Financial Conduct Authority to publish its assessment of the justification given by Barclays for the closure of its Leiston branch.
Petition, Barclays Bank closure in Suffolk.
Petition, Fleur Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I presented a petition from hundreds of residents of Putney, Southfields, Roehampton and Wandsworth Town, asking for improved access to GP appointments. Many local residents feel that they have to wait for too long for appointments, or that they're having to phone up at 8 o'clock to try and get an appointment, or they don't have face-to-face appointments when they need to have them, and that their health outcomes are worse as a result. They acknowledge absolutely that GP staff are working incredibly hard to meet the needs of patients, and many local surgeries are run very well with good access to appointments, but others are not, and they are asking for more support from the Government. The petitioners therefore request that the House of Commons urge the Government to consider the concerns of the petitions and take immediate action to ensure that access to GP appointments is improved, and the petitioners remain etc.
Petition, access to GP appointments.